Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. We've obviously had a really big release for Warhammer the Old World this summer with Grand Cathay. If you've seen the channel before, you'll have noticed I've did a review of the Arcane Journal and I painted all the stuff that Games Workshop very kindly sent me earlier. There was individual painting tutorials for the Lantern and the Sentinel and the Longmer, and there was also a painting tutorial about how I worked through that battalion box as well. But what there hasn't been is a video that shown the whole army that I've painted, and I held off a little bit because I was painting some extras for it. Wanted to fill out those units a little bit, add some Ogre unit fillers, and add a little bit of terrain in the guise of tents and things as well. So really finish off that army as a project, minus Meow Ying, which will hopefully come fairly soon in the future. So that is what this video is about, showing you all the extras, showing the army all together, and discussing my overall thoughts on it, and some of my thoughts around my initial lists and little games and things as well. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems, and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description. There are going to be plenty of tutorial-like sections in this video, but there's not going to be anywhere near the level of detail that I put in my usual tutorials. And if you're interested in how I painted in detail any of the miniatures in this video, then go and check out these 4 tutorials. Those videos, along with this one, will give you a pretty good idea and show you many of the tips and techniques that I used to get to this stage. So let's go right back to what seems like an age ago, and Games Workshop very kindly sent me all of this stuff early, and it was a lot, and I must admit I did feel a little bit under pressure to do a lot with it quite quickly. They've sent me so much stuff, and it's really great for the channel. So it meant lots of building downstairs while the kids watched telly and chipping away at it in the evenings. And the miniatures are beautiful, but they are quite detailed. So even the basic inventory, I mean, while they're simple enough to go together, does take quite a while. So it definitely takes out a little bit of extra effort compared to some of the older fantasy kits, which are a little bit more simple to go together. This is modern day Games Workshop miniatures after all. But aside from a few issues while building the Sentinel, which many other people have discussed as well, I did a little bit in my video, I think you can be built fine. It just takes a little bit of extra planning, and some colour instructions would go a very long way to help with that, I think, though. We'll leave it at that. But eventually I got there, and it looked all pretty impressive, but now I had to paint it all. Now, I approach this as an army painting project. Army painting is what I do, all kind of army level painting. I commission paint as well. It's the other side of my business, a slightly larger side at the moment compared to the YouTube channel. So I'm using all of the techniques and things that I do for large projects there. But I also wanted to save some time as well. There's so much detail on each of those inventory models. If you paint all the little bits of edging in a separate color like they have in the studio paint scheme, then again it would just take an awful long time, and it's not time that I have to invest into it really. As much as I'd love to do that in some ways, I like to see projects finished. I think like most painters do, you want to find a way that's not all that painful and you have a nice looking army at the end of it. So I made a number of choices there. One of them was to go lots of metallic, and that being the theme, including areas that would be covered or leather on the studio paint scheme as well. I've decided to make a lot of it metallic, and that just be the theme of my own army, and just limit that palette down a little bit as well. Going with the green for the Jade Warriors because that's what they wear, but cutting back on some of those other colours as well. So you've got kind of green and metallic. So it's partly an aesthetic choice, but also tied in there heavily, being a sort of a paint scheme choice as well. So I didn't go mad and was able to get the project finished, but it still took me an awful lot longer than I thought it would do at stages, because there's just so much detail on the miniatures that you have to paint, and it's very, very difficult to get in there once they're fully assembled. But the last thing I wanted to do was sub-assemble every single miniature as well. That would be even more painful. But they are beautiful miniatures, and I had loads and loads of fun doing them.
And I would definitely continue to add to this army as new units come out. It's such a beautiful range. I really enjoyed it. And here's all the stuff that I've painted before this video that you've seen in other videos, if you'd seen them, including the lantern, which is by far my favourite overall piece and how it looks now. But I really like the artillery crews as well. They're really fantastic miniatures, and I quite like that whole theme. It's the same part of the army, the same kind of style uniforms, and I've had a lot of fun painting those. I guess for me here, you've got a window into the society a little bit more, or a less stoic side of the society. Yes, they're professionals, they're engineers, they make guns, they make cannons, they make bombs, but they feel a little bit more human rather than the sort of stone war faces of the professional Jade warriors. And maybe that's why I like these little miniatures a bit more. I think there's lots more character in them, and I just definitely had more fun painting this side. And it makes me wonder in the future if they do go to that sort of peasant style bowmen or spearmen and things that you see in the Total War game, that as much as you have to paint loads of them, because I imagine they'll be a lot cheaper and less elite, it would be really, really fun to do, and the army look quite stunning as well. So maybe something to look forward to in the future. Who knows whether they'll go down that route. I went for the Onyx Sentinel mostly because I quite like the rules, I quite like the magical debuff and the idea of it being in the centre of the lines, maybe supporting the troops. I feel like they work very well for that. I'm sure that's not the most competitive build because it's not the way my mind works. I quite like it, but it's probably not the colour scheme I'd go to purely as a painter, and I don't normally make that choice. The Longmire, loads of fun with the Longmire itself, all the different colours I was able to achieve using lots of glazes and airbrushing on and hand painting on. The crew member was fine, nice miniature, but the Longmire itself really, really nice. I'm not quite sure about its pose on the base, and it feels like it needs a larger base or something, but the miniature overall and the colours I was able to get I was really happy with, and it was relatively short period of time compared to what the studio paint job would have obviously been. Do check out that painting tutorial if you want to see how I did that. The gatekeepers, gate masters, they're lovely miniatures, and they get lost a little bit with all the other grand miniatures that are around, and I suppose they are just a 2-pack mounted BSB type kit that you see with the other ranges. But they are very, very nice. I've followed the same schemes really as I did for the main Jade Warriors, apart from swapping out the green for the red, and that was pretty much it. I think the Jade Lancer sculpts get a little bit overlooked as well. They got absolutely beautiful movement in them, and I only really realised when I ranked them all up, and they look like a big charging mass of cavalry, which is really cool, and they work perfectly in 2 ranks as well. So I'm happy with this unit. They are pretty good. I've enjoyed using them. They're effective. You'll have noticed I've not shown you the ranked up units of the Jade Warriors yet, and that's deliberate because I'm adding a couple of unit fillers, and after I painted for that battalion box I bought an extra frame of 10 Jade Warriors as well to fill those units out, and I'm making unit fillers out of Ogres, and these are the Warhammer Cursed City and Brutal Corpse Eater Ogres, and all I've done is add some extras from the box. So we've got the spare heads for the Ogre crew from the artillery, a lance on one. The shoulder pads are made out of little extra bits from the Sentinel as well, a couple of extra pouches and bags put on, a couple of cavalry shields because they're a little bit larger, and one of the blades as well, and a plume on the top of the helmeted version of Brutog, which is normal as the standard head. But the whole aesthetic for that miniature fits in really, really nicely with the kind of the Eastern themes. You get that a little bit obviously with Ogres, but they're a little bit chunkier and a little bit comedic. These guys are a little bit more live, the modern style, and they fit in really, really nicely. And if we have Ogres manning the weapons, then why not maybe have some in the Jade Warriors, stretching the lore a little bit. But it's my own lore and my own army, and it's a way of filling up 4 miniatures in a group as well. Painting wise, exactly the same paint scheme as I've used for the Jade Warriors and Jade Lancers on that main battalion tutorial, so I'm not going to cover that in this video as I've already mentioned. But this is what these chaps look like when they're finished. I think all those extra little bits added into the existing miniature, which I've already said has that nice Eastern theme to it, makes them look like they're made for the army, I think. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit too much, but I just think they fit in really well with the extra packs and things on there. They just look like they should be part of the army anyway. And as you can see there, in the units that I've got made up as 21s, I actually bought 10 extra miniatures as well, and added a couple of those to each unit, 21 in 3 ranks, and I just think they look really, really cool. You obviously get 30 total Jade Warriors in the box, so you can only build 2 units of 15 and 1 larger unit. So by adding these extras, the unit fillers, which always gives a bit more interest anyway, and a couple of extra models painted up, which weren't done at the time of the original battalion painting video, and that's why I didn't show you ranked up units like this, because I planned to do it in this video. But I'm really happy with them. I think they look pretty cool. Whether I add another Jade unit as well, I'm not sure, if I'm honest with you. I don't think there'll ever be points in the army to allow out a third one unless you start cutting out lots of the really fun stuff. So here's my 2K list. I'm not going to go into this great detail because I am not a super competitive player. I don't go to many events at all, and I don't do things like build lists with multiple lanterns in there because they're going to be competitive. I've got one in there because it's cool. I probably won't add a second now because they are seen as competitive and they're probably a little bit undercosted, which will put me off doing it because I don't want to be that guy, and that which is fine for people who are taking those to competitive events to try and compete. That's what it's designed to do, but I don't play like that often, so it wouldn't work. Beating a 10-year-old at home in the studio, thrashing him running 6 lanterns or something like that just wouldn't be fun for anyone, and I wouldn't play that kind of game down my local club. I play much more. I like match play. I like playing 2,000 points versus 2,000 points and all of the kind of restrictions that come with that. Using the match play guide here, you'll see as well the grand melee, combined arms, but I like casual match play settings as much as I like going to an event occasionally, but I'm going to build a list that's kind of balanced overall and looks like an army on the table because that's just the way I like my armies to look and the way I like to play my games. So that's what this is about really. It's essentially just using everything you can buy, so one of everything, and I've just filled out those units with a couple of unit fillers and a couple of extra miniatures. I probably won't even run the magic law that I've put there, though maybe, and the Lord Magistrate is there as that, the sort of the leadership bubble, the more shard to that defensive protection, the boost to the rockets, as much as he's there for doing a bombing run. And I think when I initially reviewed the book, that's where my mind went with it. I didn't start thinking about all the things you could do with lanterns, with multiple lanterns, with bombing runs and all those different things, because again, my mind doesn't work that way. So it's a pretty simple build here. Shigangan Lord, because it's the only way of getting magic in the army. The Magistrate is kind of the core of the leadership of the army. Both gatekeepers there. BSB will go in one of the Jade Warrior units, and then the other gatekeeper goes with the Lancers. I could drop those in the future, or definitely the mounted one maybe if I wanted points for something else. There's a little bit of redundancy there, but again, it's nice to have all the miniatures in there. And then 2 chunks of warriors, which I think we need in the game for score now anyway, a 20 and a 21, and then the full unit of 10 Jade Lancers as well, which are pretty good when they hit on the charge. They have been pretty useful so far in the few games I've played with them. I've not played too many games actually at 2K. And then both rocket batteries with ogres because they're cool. They're expensive, but they're such beautiful miniatures, and they are very good as well. Then the Sentinel, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, so it is a really nice balanced overall list. I think if you run it like that and still be relatively competitive, definitely in the hands of a good player, of which I am not. So I made a little bit of a video on terrain before the launch of Cathay, and lots of people have been building stuff and digging into ranges from other games, and I wasn't quite happy with anything I found, but then I thought more about them being on campaign, and it seems to be that's the focus of the book that's coming soon, is about the Cathayan army on campaign in the old world. And I thought, well, they must have brought some campaign tents with them, and there's actually images there from Total War showing some tents, so I was on the lookout for something like that, with a little bit of help from my friends at Witch Art 3D Printing, which I had on the show before, showing off their cosplay kit. They printed me these lovely tents here, which I made a few modifications to, but I think they're really, really cool, and I think it'd be a really nice way of adding something thematic to go with the army, but also can be used as terrain as well on the table to add like a village or a little bit of sort of line of sight blocking terrain, however you decide you want to use it. They sent me some extra bits as well, some barrels and little things which I'm going to be using as baggage, so these are pretty cool. The match play guide has introduced objective markers and baggage, and I'm going to be making those in this video and showing you how I did it. But I'm going to be making 2 lots of baggage markers, one using all of this excellent 3D printed stuff, so thank you again to Alex and Carol for sending me those. I'm also going to make one that's Warhammer World legal, because I do like to play there occasionally as well. I'm going to doubles soon. I'll need to take something potentially for that, and the 3D prints won't be able to use there. I'll have to make them out of their own stuff. So I'm making 2 of those. All of my objectives will be using bits from the leftovers from the Cathay box as well. Having made my 3D printed set, now it's time for my Warhammer World legal set as well, and I'm kind of going to the leftover bits, of which there are a lot of from the Grand Cathay boxes and sets as well. You've got loads of leftover bits from the artillery set, especially the crew that are useful, the extra packs, because you can build them in both ways. You've got that little dude that's pulling along that cart, and it's very easy with all the extra weapons and shields and things to make something that's suitable as well. I'm going to make use of some of the spare banners for some of the objectives as well. And again, here's a selection of the kind of bits you can use. I've seen these already in the groups. People are doing similar things, so there's plenty of scope without having to go out and buy anything else other than some extra bases in order to do so. At the end of the day, it's about using your imagination and a little bit of plaster of Paris for some rocks. But again, just sticking the spare banners in like they're stuck into the rocks, you've got a couple of objective markers, absolutely perfect. And it doesn't take long to wang a few extra bits that I've already shown you from the box onto the larger base, and you've got another baggage train there as well. And this really only took a couple of hours of messing around, finding all the bits, cleaning them up and sticking them to these bases. So easy to do. Made up some extra objectives as well that aren't the flag ones. One's got the spare kind of viewing tool from the lantern kit, and the other one, I've made it look like the barrel has sort of been broken open, and there's a few money pouches and things inside, so it's sort of like some treasure or something. So then it's back to the tents, and I didn't like the really spiky bits on the top. They didn't seem very thematic, a little bit too medieval Europe. So I trimmed them off and just filed them down so they're like sort of little balls on the top, really. And they've also got these shield emblems on the side as well, a little bit too European medieval for me. So I cut them off with my clippers and then filed them down afterwards. Paint-wise, nothing too stressful at all. I've picked the same colours, obviously, that I've used for the army. So all the golds and the blacks and the greens and things that you've seen on the Jade Warrior units, I've used that for the banners and things here. And anything metallic, that's either been the same metallic steel that I've used for the army, or it's been the same golds that I've used for the army as well. Lots of airbrushing zenithal beforehand, and lots of dry brushing to pick out that detail, because pretty much everything was then painted in contrast as a base layer, and in many cases not highlighted any further. That's why I've done all the underpainting as well. Most of the wood was picked out using the method I use with sort of wet blending different browns and adding some greens and things actually on the miniature itself. Again, I cover that in a lot of painting tutorials, but again, same colour schemes and nothing really to make a full tutorial out here without repeating myself or without repeating information you can go and find in those bespoke videos anyway. But it was super easy to do, because generally there was lots of texture there, which responds really well to the sort of the underpainting and the dry brushing going on. There's just picking out things in the colours you'd expect them to, really, and having a little bit of fun with it, trying to make it look pretty cool, but also realising it's just objectives and baggage and things, and I don't need to spend as long on it as I might do with another miniature of this size if it was a character or something like that. But all in all, I was pretty happy with the way they've come out. Once I've got those base layers down, a really easy way to add extra highlights is actually to go back and do a little extra dry brush over areas like wood and the fabrics and things as well. So by reapplying a dry brush afterwards, and then going back with a similar colour, something like a skeleton horde, you can almost look like you're adding a little extra highlight on there, anyway, a little edge highlight. So the last thing you want to be doing is edge highlighting all of the areas of a baggage section like this as well. But I'm pretty happy with the way they've come out overall. I think they look pretty cool on the table, and it's really nice to add little extras like this to your army. Naturally, all the basing was done again to match the armies at the same pace, the same washes, the same tufts and things. Again, it just produces a really nice little set, and 2 lots of baggage, as I've already mentioned, depending on where I'm gaming. But it's lovely to have these things in the game from a sort of modelling perspective, and a way of adding extras to your army that makes it really stand out when it's all lined up and displayed together. And there's so many resources for it out there, be that your bits box or delving into the 3D printed market that's out there as well. Lots of fun to be had with these extras in the game now. So now it's time to turn the attention to the tents, which I've now primed in black and they're ready to go. And I also wanted to make sure that I could use some of the leftover transfers. The decals that are in the set are perfect for going on the sides of these tents. I decided not to go for all the bright colours that we saw in the Total War images, all the different blues and things. So I've gone for this sort of triad plus an extra white there of these two thin coats paints, but it's basically a spectrum of tan type colours, bonish type colours as well. So it doesn't really matter which ones I'm using here. You can pick them from your own range if you decide to do something similar. What I'm doing here is using the airbrush to kind of slowly build up layers, starting from the dark to the light. Really simple stuff, using the angle of the airbrush on the miniature as well, so that it catches the natural shadows there in the fabric. So if I'm catching it on the side almost, it just hits those top areas, and I want to leave some of that shadow built in. I will reinforce it a little bit later on, but you can see there it's just leaving a little bit of the darker areas and those recesses, so it already looks pretty cool just on sort of the first pass and the first colour. And as we build up through the spectrum of colour, just a little bit less each time, trying to leave some of that darker shade in, focusing on the very tips and the edges more where that light would catch the most. And I just think it starts to look pretty cool straight away, and it's so simple to do. And as we get to the top, I'm just adding a little bit of white to really make those top highlights pop, and it will stand out a lot more, especially because I'm going to glaze this back a little bit with some colour now. And that first bit of colour is Skeleton Horde with a touch of water in my airbrush, and just kind of reinforcing those shadows around the bottom to start with. And it's such a low pigment paint, as long as you've got a little bit of control with your airbrush. You may have seen me doing something similar in the balloon on the Sky Lantern if you've watched that tutorial. I'm just reinforcing the sort of the sepia tones, the tan tones of the paint scheme here, and adding into the shadows first, and then kind of blending out a little bit so it darkens those shadows and it starts to give a little bit more overall definition to the colour. And then we've got Cygor brown here. We can use any brown. I'm just painting in the wooden struts there on the side of the tents. As before, I'm returning to the same accent colours and golds in this case for the little bits of extra detail and embellishment on the tents there, before turning to first the oil paints. And this is grease, my most used one. If you watch my videos, you'll have seen it millions of times. Just add a little bit of shading to the metallics to make them look a little bit more weathered, and then I can also add a little bit on the wood and other little recesses on the tents as well. I added a few little streaks in and just wiped it away with a cotton bud, so it looked like a little bit of weathering, so rain has been on the tent. It'll just add a little bit of natural staining as well, before brushing in a little bit of dry pigment around the edge. And this pigment, the AK stuff, is quite thick. It sticks to the miniature really well. I'm not going to seal it or anything like that, just blow the excess off, because afterwards I'm adding a little bit of Vallejo European mud effect over the top, stippling that over the top as well, and that kind of dries on and protects it, so it makes you look like you've got drier ingrained mud in the fabric, and this looks a little bit wetter around the edges, and really just makes your miniature look like it's sitting on the table rather than floating on the table. So adding a little bit of weathering around the bottoms of them. If you're not going to make bases for your train, I don't always like to do that, it's a little bit faffy and it takes up more space to store. So if you're not going to make bases for it, this is just a really good way of making it blend into your board a little bit more. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with the effect on these. I do have a tutorial on how to apply decals. I'm not covered in this at all. I've covered it in the main army builds as well, because I've used them in those and on the Lantern, so go and check those out there. But I think those decals on there just really ties it in with the army and makes it look like it's something that's supposed to be Cathayan rather than some medieval tents that are borrowed from another range. I must admit, when I put out the battalion painting video, and that was the last of the series of tutorials, I did regret not having the full units finished and based ready with the ogres and the extra miniatures in order to show you shots like this, but I just didn't have them all at the time, and I'd planned this video in with all of this extra bits and things as well, so I knew it would be perfect eventually to kind of show you off the completed army once I'd done absolutely everything for it, minus Miao Ying, who's not out yet. The terrain that you see there is mostly citadel stuff and railway trees, but all of the bamboo terrain, all of that is from Warpaint figures. There's a link in the video description. I'm not an affiliate, but it's a small UK company. I did a short reviewing some of the stuff that he sent me. There's the link. If you sign up for their mailing list, you get a discount off, which is well worth doing, and they do lots of the Tufts and things that I've used in this video as well, so they're well worth checking out. So go and check those things out there. Again, this is obviously them setting up ready before they set sail for the old world, which I'm really looking forward to finding out more about in that next Arcane Journal when it's out. You can see them there in their camp before they board their ships, but it's really fun adding little extras like this and turning an army project into a project as a whole, the whole themed collection there. And yes, the tents aren't really part of the match play guide, but I wanted to have something I could use as terrain, but all those baggage parts and all of those objectives and things are. And again, loads of fun being able to add it and add theme to the army. And apart from Miao Ying, I probably won't be adding anything to this army now until there is more. There's talk, we'll have to see what's in that Arcane Journal. I think there was talk in one of the articles about allying with Empire or something, which would be really cool, and that's something I would add to this army if that turns out to be the case. But loads and loads of fun doing this. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching and learning about the sort of all the ways I've painted the army over the series of videos, but also how I fitted in these little extras and the reasons for doing so around theme and things like that as well. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think in the comments. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully it's filled in some of the gaps. I know a lot of you commented, especially after the battalion box painting video, that you wanted to see the whole army, I wanted to see whole units, and I didn't really realise when I filmed that, well, I must have realised, but just didn't include pictures of the whole finished units. At the time I hadn't fully based it all, even though it was just about finished. I've had them done for a little while now, but it was time to put that all together in this video, and because I knew that I was adding these extra bits, I was always going to hold this off a little bit and have this final video. Now, a few other things have come along in between, including the recent reveals over the summer, which has meant that I held off a little bit. So I hope you forgive me for those of you who wanted to see the whole army. It was nice to take all the final shots of it all lined up on the table and show you how I went around doing those little extra bits as well, hopefully inspire you and give you some ideas for your own armies. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, comment below and subscribe to the channel. All that stuff that really genuinely helps out. It helps with the algorithm, which really is very important at the moment. If I don't put out a video on the same topic every week, it really struggles. So just by liking it and commenting really helps make sure that that's shown to more people, and hopefully more people can see that videos have actually been published. It's a tough world on YouTube at the moment. I know, violins and all the rest, but I really do genuinely appreciate it. If you'd like to support me even further, then please do check out all the links in the video description. The most important one to me is my Patreon, because that is the best way that I can afford to keep making lots and lots of hobby videos like this, which I love doing and want to keep doing. And my patrons, thank you to all of them, really help me continue to do so. And the more patrons I have, the more stuff like this that I can do, and the more big projects I can do and put out content like this, which hopefully you've enjoyed. But also check out the other links as well. There's a couple of affiliate links to give you discount on some hobby tools and airbrushes with Gallery as well. But also check out my channel sponsor, Counter Attack Bases, which makes loads and loads of really useful stuff for Warhammer the Old World. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.